MPOs who were acting as their fiscal agent. So NEOCC did the plan, MPOs are implementing. And here's a little thing we put together where you can kind of see the strings attached along the way. So you have good old Uncle Sam at the top. You've got the three DOT, EPA, DOT, and HUD. They gave the $4.5 million grant to the 4 MPOs. They created NEOSC and they put a chain around the 12 Northeast Ohio counties. Wayne and Ashtabula and White are not part of MPOs, but they're still somehow part of the ball and chain. So this should look a little bit familiar. It looks a little like the breakdown of NOACA's board membership. But what this is this is actually the number of attendees at NEOSCC's workshops that they put on. So you can see there were 223 in Cuyahoga County versus 4 in Wayne County, 17 from Lake, 9 from Geauga. Now, they continued having workshops after this, and I know this because there was one that was actually held in Lake County, and we probably had, what, maybe 50 people at that one. So at the time that this map was created, this was the breakdown, but it's pretty much, the ratio pretty much continued.
And by the way, Geauga County passed a resolution, the commissioners, I wasn't a commissioner at the time, opting Geauga County out of the NEOSC plan. It's never been referenced, it's never been talked about. They have gone forward as though it didn't exist, that resolution.
And that's because it's NOACA that's doing it now, and Geauga's part of NOACA. So, okay, so we have Northeast Ohio Sustainable Communities Consortium. And just another reference here to Agenda 21. This is from the UN's website, all right, not from some kind of, well, not from a conspiracy website, although it is from a crazy website, okay? So this is directly from the source. Here's what they say about non-governmental organizations, which is exactly what NEOSCC is, because the board members of NEOSCC are not elected. We have 0 input on the leadership in NEOSCC. And so what they say about non-governmental organizations and major groups are important partners in the implementation of Agenda 21. Relevant non-governmental organizations, including the scientific community, the private sector, and women's groups. I've heard this multiple times, and I haven't really seen it in real life yet, but I think that there's going to be at some point a focus from them on women's groups and trying to get women to sort of drive this mission here. They should be given opportunities to make their contributions and establish appropriate relationships with the UN system. Great. Can you guys see this okay? I wasn't sure if it was going to be too blurry because it was a screenshot that I had to blow up. So these are 2 maps, Geauga County and Lake County. All right, your neighbor to the north, friendly neighbor to the north. So what we have is a before and after. Now the colors are a little bit different because they were kind of looking at different things, but it still tells the same story. So on the left, that's basically the demographics now. So you can see the green is rural. The pale yellow is what they call an outer ring suburb. Anything that's a yellowy, orangey color is part of a suburb. They just have different criteria for them. That dark purpley kind of color is an established city or town, and red is a legacy city, which we don't have because they would consider legacy city to be Cleveland. Now, if you look at the right, it looks a little different, doesn't it? Geauga County is almost all park. Okay. I don't know if you can tell the difference. See the real pale green in here? See the real pale little splotches? That's rural. That's all that's going to be left of rural residential areas. Everything else is some shade of darker green, which is parks or conservation, which means they're going to somehow, right? How are they going to do this? They're going to somehow have to push everybody up north and push everybody west towards Cleveland. Look at Lake County. In the before picture, that's Route 90, the bottom line going through Lake County. That's Route 90. Look at over here. Almost everything south of 90 is parks, conservation. How are they going to do that? Do you guys remember me talking about the transects? You start with the suburbs and you work your way up. So this is the bigger map, all right? This is the 2040. This is their vision for our future, okay? Do you guys notice anything about the dark green lines? They kind of go like this.
Those are wildlife corridors.
Wildlife corridors. Mhm. You know what else those are? Those are the transect lines. Okay?
What do they mean by transect?
Now the question is, you know, this is 2040. They have a lot to accomplish between now and 2040, okay? I've heard that they're actually working on a 2050 plan. So they're either behind on their implementation or they're already looking on towards the next step. And remember, that's what progressives do. They just continue to look forward, march forward, take a baby step every chance you get. This is another version of the map. It's just a more clear version of the lines. So, NUSCC, these are the sample recommendations that they came up with after all of their visioning sessions. They took surveys, they got public opinion, and we saw how that was broken out. Number one there, promote infill development in established cities and towns. Do you guys know what infill is? It's not like a landfill. Kind of like a landfill, but with people, okay? Infill means people moving from rural and suburban areas into the cities. The other thing to point out is, do you remember there were some small areas of rural zoning on that map? Who's going to be able to live there? Because there's such a tiny amount of property, it's going to be super expensive for anybody to purchase that. So what they're doing is they're having all the serfs like us move in towards the cities and live on top of each other in this high density type of developing. And then the leadership elite are going to be the ones who get to live in the nice rural areas. And they can look at the deer and birds and whatever. Also, what you'll see with NOACA is that they are taking focus away from building new roads because they want to put more money into maintaining current infrastructure, is what they say. What they're really doing is they're spending money on bike paths and what they call multimodal. It's alternatives to vehicle. Which is why number 3 up here makes sense. Maximize investment in existing roads before building new ones, because if they're not going to allow us to move outwards, instead they want us to move inwards, why would they be building outwards, right? Enhance and integrate regional public transit services. Make walking, biking, and transit better and more accessible mobility choices. Lovely. Then number 2, introduce ecological functions to vacant and underutilized urban land, as well as public land where such treatments are effective and appropriate. All right. In Lake County, in 2012, our commissioners established a land bank. All right. Land banks can be used for this purpose. What they do is they take vacant properties, the rundown, properties, they demolish them, and what they can do, instead of selling them back to a private individual to keep it as private property, they dump it in the land bank, and they can introduce ecological functions to that property. They can put a little tiny park on it or whatever, but as long as that ends up in public ownership, it's no longer going to be available for private ownership. Okay, so this was not on the map, or the timeline, because this is since the timeline was developed. Now this is 2014. NOACA in 2014, last year, adopts the NUSDC recommendations that I just showed you into their regional strategic plan. This was done without a vote. They just adopted the recommendations. And what they're going to be doing is they're going to be prioritizing projects that they fund based on projects that fulfill the goals that they're looking for, which are these recommendations. And you can see NUSCC. This is directly from the regional strategic plan, and it's NUSCC all throughout. And on their website, in the bottom there, NUSCC. Okay, where are we now with NOACA? These are updates from both the January quarterly Board of Directors meeting and the March meeting that we just had last week that Skip was talking about. Just want to go over some of the resolutions we talked about. So the regional strategic plan was voted on by the board in January, which by the way include NUSCC's recommendations. Skip voted no, I voted no. Mary Samiti was at this meeting because Blake was not there. She is Blake's alternate, so she was at the meeting. She voted yes. We have audio on this. Skip, do you want to, how do we play the audio?
As I mentioned in my first
Can you hear it?
this is a very critical item for our agenda. That was over the last 2 years, it's been a decent process to build a consensus.
Skip, you can't hear it, it's not worthwhile. No, you can't hear it. It's like a plan B. Tell us. You can't hear it, Skip.
They're saying, you'll love communism, don't worry about it.
It's a good summary. Okay, so the committee assignments. So every year they redo the committees in NOACA because you have new people coming on, like Skip, which they were thrilled about, that he got a permanent position there. So I just wanted to show you what they tried to do. You might have heard Skip say that they stripped him of committee assignments. And what that's based on is their policy typically is when you have a newbie come in, he's supposed to be able to sit on all of the committees that the person he replaced was on the year before. So if you look at 2014, those are the different committees, and that column is who was assigned to what. You can see Mary was on 4, right? Blake was on 1, Ralph was on 2. 2015, the first column in 2015 is per their policy. These should have been the committee assignments. So Skip would have been with every single one that Mary had been on. And the last column is actual. That is the committee assignment currently. And the crazy thing about the executive committee, which is probably one of the most important committees, right? They put her as the primary. The primary. Even though she's not your representative anymore, they had her as the primary for Geauga County on the executive committee with Blake as her alternate.
How do they do that?
Their explanation was that she is the immediate past president of NOACA. She was the president last year. Now my argument for that is, okay, well if she's going to be on the executive committee as a representative of NOACA, then she shouldn't also be the representative of Geauga County, right? Conflict of interest. So if they want to keep her on as the primary, as a representative for NOACA, they should also have another, a commissioner, an actual commissioner from Geauga County on there as well. Now what they did was they fixed the wording so that it is in fact Blake who is now, because we put up a fuss, Blake is now the primary member on the executive committee with Mary as his alternate because she's his alternate. But like you can see up here, it really should have been Skip. By the way, it should have been Skip.
If Blake doesn't have her as his alternate, is she off?
Yeah, that's the only reason she's there at the table at all.
So it is Blake's fault.
Right. So it's up to us to get Blake to get her off that board, and how do we do that?
We have tried.
Blake's up next year.
Yeah, I know.
incidentally.
Well, you
But
put
they
the
say
pressure on
Mary's
him
gonna
now.
run
I mean,
it
if
down.
it's, if this upsets you,
I heard them.
call him,
I have.
email him.
I have called.
We have.
I've gone to a meeting and said it. I've written him twice.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
Don't
He's
give
gotta
up.
continue
Be
to hear it.
persistent.
He was
Everybody
waiting for
get
everybody. He knew
involved.
the dust was gonna settle. People would leave him alone.
Yeah.
Don't let the
Okay.
dust settle.
Well, the nice thing is, though, you guys did make a difference because he actually attended the meeting on Friday, and he attended 2 or 3 or whatever of the committee meetings prior to Friday's board meeting. So if he's actually going to regularly attend these meetings, then his alternate doesn't matter, essentially. So
We
you
can see Blake too, he'll probably be there Saturday morning at the Republican Party.
Central Committee.
Central Committee meeting there at Kent State. And there'll be a good chance to talk to Blake then.
Kim, can I make one other
Mhm.
comment? One other quick comment for you. If you download the bylaws, they call them the Code of Regulations from the NOACA website, you'll see that NOACA has orchestrated or have put themselves into the position where the president of the board, Ted Kalo out of Lorraine, far, far left-wing progressive, is the person who selects everybody for these committees. Don't you think it's rational or logical that each county should have the ability to name who their committee representatives? You only got 3, give us a choice on which committees we're gonna sit on. But no, Ted Kalo gets to pick. It is a little fascistic tyranny that's going on there because he gets to pick and nobody gets to question it. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is we can make a difference if enough people came to NOACA. You got 2 minutes to speak at the beginning of the board meeting and say, how is this right? If enough people challenge them publicly, then they would be incented to maybe make a change. Particularly if we had the news media there, if we had the cameras there, where are the
Jones is
Joneses?
here, right here.
And so if we had cameras there, they do react to things that are in the public, because they work really, really hard to protect their public image. And those times where Kim and I have gotten some traction and dinged them in the public, oh, they were just fit to be tied. They do react to public scrutiny. You're going to talk about the lobbying effort, right? So the public does make a difference. That's you, but you got to get involved.
And again, that's an example of the tail wagging the dog. The board members are supposed to be the ones who are in charge, and you have NOACA saying, no, you as the 3 commissioners from your county cannot decide who you feel is most qualified or the best person to sit on, this committee or that committee. It's NOACA who gets to assign it for you, and it's not based on qualifications. It's based on how do they feel about you, and it's pretty clear how they feel about Skip. Looking at these committee assignments. And just, in case you're curious how everybody voted on the committee memberships. Mary, yes, Skip, no, me, no. So this is another one. NOACA is creating a new Safety and Operations Council. Skip made a good point. We did have audio, but we're not going to worry about it. The question is, do we need yet another bureaucracy sapping our tax dollars and governing our communities while NOACA claims there isn't enough money for roads and bridges? And this is my, I say this all the time. They complain that there isn't enough money for roads and bridges, yet they waste it on bike paths and pedestrian paths
And
and
$30,000
trains.
for a lobbying effort to Steve Laturette's
Salaries.
Whoa, hang on there, buddy. I'm getting there.
Oh, sorry.
It's salaries. It's making.
Salary,
Yeah.
$4 million, $4 million of the $7 million in overhead is salaries,
Whoa.
Of unelected officials.
right? Yeah, all of
Appointed
them
by
are
the
elected.
board.
And unaccountable.
Unaccountable, that's correct.
So we have a yes, a no, and a silent. I didn't speak. I wasn't sure what to do on this one. Okay.
She wasn't listening to me.
I was listening to you. You said so many brilliant things. I was just processing it all. Before I knew it, the vote was over. I missed the opportunity.
Yeah, I know, she's brown.
I don't need brown. All right. TLCI. Okay, so this is another one. TLCI is the Total Livable Communities Initiative. This is yet another one of those projects that NOACA likes to fund that have nothing to do with your roads. They did an evaluation on this fund, this TLCI fund program. This came from their own evaluation that they did. And I just want to point out about halfway down, it's the end of the first sentence of that second paragraph, the word livability. Okay, so it says the TLCI program provides federal funding assistance to communities and public agencies to complete plans that improve livability. Well, let me ask you, okay, in your community, if I were to say, you know, what things in your community make it livable? You know, like, what do you find that you need in order to be happy in your community, to survive in your community? What, anybody have some idea? Space, elbow room? Yeah.
Not much.
What is
Privacy.
privacy? Okay. Well, you know, our common sense definition of livability doesn't really align with NOACA's definition of livability. I don't know if you foresaw that or not. So, you see the little one next to livability up there? At the bottom of this page, they explain what their definition of livability came from. It came from the DOT website. They actually have something specifically for livability. It's dot.gov/livability, all right? You know there's a high demand for something when the government has to tell you you want it. Just, you know, keep that in mind. So, what is their definition of livability? It's in the orange there. I don't know if you can see it. I'll read it to you. Livability means being able to take your kids to school, go to work, see a doctor, drop by the grocery or post office, go out to dinner and a movie, and play with your kids at the park, all without having to get in your car.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not having space. It's being able to somehow go to the grocery store and get all your groceries home without your car. It's somehow taking your kids to school without a car. It's how somehow getting all dressed up and going to dinner with your hubby or your wife without your car. I guess maybe you could hop on the bus. That's romantic. I love that, by the way.
Or your bicycle.
Yeah, what are the tandem bike?
Yeah, that's it.
And here are the votes for the Transportation for Livable Communities Initiative policy.
Of course, Mary says yes.
I really wish this audio was working because my favorite audio clip I have from this meeting in January was Mary going on and on and on about how wonderful the commutes are in Amsterdam because they're all on their bikes and it's so progressive. And I did not let her get away with that. So I have the audio, we just can't hear it. Maybe afterwards if you want to listen to it. Well, what's up with the external speaker? Is that not working?
Well, I've got it enabled.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Do you guys want to hear it? Because he'll try to get it going here in a second.
All she has to do is move over
You
there.
know why he's doing that, Ken?
We would love it.
I mean, here we are, we're talking about NOACA. We have representatives that represent us. Those representatives in the past have created this monster. We need to lobby, not, our county commissioners, number one, a lot of NOACA, and then our federal representatives to disband this group and get our tax money back that way. That's what we need to do. That's what we are supposed to be doing. We're sitting here, and your presentation is outstanding. But NOACA is not the problem. Our representatives in DC are the problem, and in Columbus.
There are a combination of factors that all make up the broad problem. And by the way, since he mentioned your federal representatives, our Congressman, Dave Joyce, is on the Transportation Committee. And they're currently developing the new transportation bill. Every couple of years, they come out with a new transportation bill, and that provides the MPOs with whatever authority they're going to now have, which is always growing. It's never getting smaller.
We just talked about it being on the transportation team. They just passed a bill, our Republican Congress, 309 votes, to increase Amtrak, their budget from $400 million to $900 million by 2019, which is within a 4-year period.
Same 4 people?
That was just done. That was just done last week. So everybody knows Dave Joyce voted for it because he's on that committee.
I mean, how many people in this room
Double.
ride on Amtrak? Anybody?
That's
Maybe we can
Amtrak.
start, you know,
That's just for
give
northeast.
me a dog transportation.
Northeast.
You used to be able to take a train from Aurora downtown years and years ago.
And I admire, you know, I was involved in this stuff too, but, you know, my
Be able
feeling
to go on
is,
little places.
it's our representatives that we
Before they
duly
went
elect.
on
They have to fight for us, not for their best interest. These guys, all they do is lobby.
We are currently, and I won't give any details right now, but we're currently working with some state representatives to see if there's something that they can do to help us, and they're actively,
Our state,
yours maybe.
our state house and our state senate, which is Republican, just passed this litigation for the septic tanks
Yeah.
systems, which is going to force people out of these. That's what it's intended for. So we gotta wake up as a community and fight back by representing, electing people that are gonna vote against this stuff.
All right, folks, let's do this. Let's let her finish her presentation, and then because of time, we'll take all the questions and then all the commentaries.
We heard Nancy
You want
Pelosi.
to get out of here before 10.
Yeah. Take it, next time you want to tape her, take a tape recorder and tape her.
A video recorder?
Isn't that from Mary's meeting that we're listening from?
There's a lot of audio from Mary. Yeah, what I would suggest is for you guys to come to the meetings. I can't really sit at the big table with a video camera, but come to the meetings. You're welcome to. They do give you 2 full minutes to make comment at the beginning before you know what they're going to talk about. It's great. It's a great opportunity. But come and watch. The last one was entertaining. I don't know if they're going to continue to be like that. Yeah, that was fun. Wish I had some popcorn on that one. Okay, here, this, so Skip had kind of brought this up earlier, the legislative agenda. So NOACA has contracted with a law firm that I will show you in a second who they are. But they basically have their legislative agenda that they came out with. Okay? State and federal legislative agenda. This is my only copy. If you want to come see it afterwards, feel free to flip through it. If you want to request a copy from NOACA, I'm sure they'll be happy to supply you with one. I think it's probably on their website too. They usually have all these documents as PDFs on the website that you could just download. I'm just going to go over a couple things. So they claim that NOACA's legislative platform represents a consensus-driven principles that have been approved by NOACA's 45-member board. Do you think everybody voted to approve this? No. But it doesn't matter if you're the minority, because if you're a minority, it doesn't matter, you're still part of the consensus to them. Intended to guide policy analysis and advocacy. Now this is to our representatives, both state representatives and federal, and it places a premium on sustainability, la-di-da. Their federal legislative priorities, they have specific requests that they're going to be lobbying to Congress, which, what do you think those might be? Skip, what do you think that might be? What they're lobbying Congress for?
Increased taxes.
What? What taxes?
Gas taxes.
Do you want to talk about that or no? Gas taxes?
I do.
Okay, feel free. Should I start singing the Jeopardy theme song?
I thought maybe I might be able to get him to recognize that speaker. I'd love to have him hear Mary, because it's just very.
Well, afterwards, if you guys want to stick around, we can huddle around it and you guys can listen to it. Maybe we can post it online too.
Yeah, just quickly, I mean, you're going to talk about who the lobbying firm is, right?
Yeah. Maybe you don't get to it first, Nicole.
Well, I've already mentioned that McDonald Hopkins, who is Steve LaTourette's law firm, has engaged at a cost of $30,000 between now and May to lobby for a gas tax increase at the federal level, and to lobby to change our Ohio Constitution so that they can dip their fingers into.
Here, let me go ahead and change the slides while you're.
So they can dip their
How come I
fingers
can't-
into the road tax dollars today.
What did you do? Okay, go ahead. Talk about it.
So, by the Ohio Constitution, the folks in Ohio, we've always been pretty smart. And so, although there's legislators trying to undo some of the things that we've put into place, recently Kasich was successful in undoing the trade back that we had for income tax versus property tax. I don't know if you know about that, but your taxes will be going up at the next school levy pass. So do not allow a school levy to pass. Your property taxes will go up. But with that said, there's an Ohio Constitution that said, we're gonna take dollars, 28 cents a gallon, to take care of your roads in the state of Ohio. People in the state of Ohio said, okay, we'll let you take our tax dollars, take care of our roads, that makes sense, but you can only use it on roads. And they put it into the the Ohio Constitution to ensure that our lawmakers could not change that. They tied their hands. Pretty smart at the time. And on top of that, they said, and specifically, here is how the money's gotta be spent. X amount of dollars to the county, and every county gets exactly the same amount. So Cuyahoga County gets no more than Geauga County. They just divided it by 88. 75, the only bad thing about it is 75% off the top goes to, and you've heard me say this before, right to the Ohio Department of Transportation. And they're wasting a lot of money. You ought to see their new facility down in Columbus. Oh my gosh. So, but NOACA would love to see a change. So they're being lobbied by these high-priced consultants, law firm, to change the Ohio Constitution and to increase our gas tax in the state of Ohio and to increase our gas tax at the federal level. And if you don't like your taxes going up, I would hammer Dave Joyce. I would be relentless. I would have everybody you know, because he's on the committee, Transportation Committee, and he and I have already talked about this. He's aware of what's going on here. And by the way, the new law, which is Growing America.
Grow America, the Grow America.
Yeah, we don't call it growing. No, that was a Freudian slip. The name of the bill is actually Grow, but I call it Growing because that's really what it's about. It's Growing America because it's all about, not roads and bridges, but it's all about growing socialism. If you look at that law, and I have a copy on my iPad, it is all about growing government and spending money on lots of things that are not roads. So, sorry.
And it's gonna be giving more authority to the MPOs like NOACA, because that's where they get their, rules and whatnot.
When you show this list though, where does Marlene and where did Tom Patton, and both of them, where do they stand on this? I mean, are they,
These are people that NOACA is reaching out to. These are the people that they're lobbying to. So I circled John Eklund. Would be worth giving him a phone call and making sure, you're clear on where you stand on this stuff.
Kim, whatever he says today will be different tomorrow anyhow. That guy dances more than Lawrence.
Well, then you hold him accountable at the next election. You make it clear what you expect of him, and then if he doesn't follow through, then you hold him accountable. That's the
but
way
I'm
it should
just
work.
looking at where is the tone from some of this other leadership, because these are key people in northeastern Ohio. I mean, when you look at Marlene and you look at Tom Patton, though, Tom Patton's not gonna be running again, Matt Dolan's gonna be going for his slot. I mean, yeah, pay attention. So, I mean, where are these people in the mix? Because those are people, if they're working in the involvement level that we're talking about here, those to me are more key people to put pressure on Eklund than wasting my breath on him unless I have a martini pitcher in my hand.
Let me make a comment on that if you don't mind real quick. John Eklund, let me make a point real quick and then Diane will call him. John Eklund is coming up into an election year.
Right.
What do politicians do when they begin to enter an election year?
They move their lips.
They start to look for people that will ally with them, right? And so right now, John Eklund, in order to get elected, is going to need help. What did he discover at the last Tea Party meeting he came to?
He wasn't very.
He wasn't well received because of his position on septic systems. As a result of that night, guess what he has just put into the legislature? He just put a bill in to defend Geauga County's septic systems. And so I've got a copy of the bill, I'll email it out, I'll put a copy on the website. It's actually not a bad bill, it's the bill that Matt was gonna put in. And so he put the bill in. Now it's my understanding that he put it in under the premise that he knows it's gonna be voted down. So he can say, well, I tried,
Yeah.
but we can hold him accountable. He did react. The point I'm trying to make is, we sent a message, he listened, he's working to try and gain, he needs support to get elected. If everybody's against him, he's not gonna get elected. Here's a perfect opportunity to say, John, we don't want our taxes going up, we don't want our constitution changed. It's in an election year.
Yeah.
Same thing with Sarah. Sarah's trying to get her legs under her right now. She's trying to figure out how she can, get established so she can move on to the next higher level, Now is the time to get with her and get her on our side.
Hey, Skip. Some of you already know this. John Eklund is coming to our farm a week from tomorrow. Probably, I'm not sure yet whether it's 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock in the morning, but I'll invite any of you that is here right now, if you'd like to come to our farm and greet John Eklund as well, so he knows that we're all on the same
I hope he's
page.
got a diaper on.
I think we should be coming and doing target practice out there.
You can do that too.
You can do that, just don't get my barn, okay? Don't get my wind turbine. But what I'm saying is I'm extending the invitation, if any of you here can be there. I think that he really will need some Bailey's Irish.
All right, afterwards, you can let us all know where your farm is at. Right now, let us
Yes.
No, no,
Let's
get
finish
your-
this.
Yeah,
finish your
okay.
presentation. We are on it time-wise.
What time do we get kicked out at a certain time?
Yes.
Well, we're
8:30.
supposed to end by 8:30 and it's 10 after now.
10 after 8?
Yeah.
Okay, we're all right. I wouldn't have been surprised if it was 10 after 9, so the 10 after 8 is okay.
We have other things we have to have
Yeah.
on the agenda yet too, so.
Okay, so.
Hurry up!
Good job.
Good job.
Am I hearing Peg's voice up here someplace?
Okay, so NOACA did what they called a legislative meet and greet a couple weeks ago. They invited, all the state reps and state senators from the NOACA region. These are the ones who showed up. So you see that Sarah Lateret was there, John Eklund was there. They got to hear, NOACA's brilliant presentation about how wonderful they are. Oops, wrong way. So here's the McDonald Hopkins. This is the contract that NOACA has with them. $30,000 for a period of 6 months. So it's $5,000 per month for 6 months through June. The vote on Grow America, we're expecting it to be in May. So I guess, I don't know what they're going to be doing for the month after, maybe shaking hands and patting each other on the back. And just in case you didn't hear Skip say who McDonald Hopkins is, this is Lateret's guys. And you can see the votes on how the votes went for the NOACA legislative agenda. So that's the end of January, and then March, which was just last week. We just have a few here. The executive director's report, I just wanted to point out. This is the executive director is Grace Galucci. Skip mentioned her earlier. She usually gives a report. Just so you can get a sense of their priorities. They have their regional strategic plan, which we know includes the NEOSCC recommendations. Communications and outreach, they want to improve that. I think that's another word for propaganda. Their legislative and funding issues, which we talked about, and their overall work program, which is basically their budget for projects, which includes TLCI. So here's the overall work program. You can see that TLCI is part of it. This is not the entire thing, it's just a part. Just want to point out that they have received 10 applications throughout the region for TLCI dollars. Again, this is for things like, bike paths, pedestrian paths, whatnot. Here's what Skip was talking about earlier with the transportation subcommittee that got everybody in an uproar. I thought it was hilarious because out of everything that they're doing, this is the thing. And we're only talking a difference of 3 members. It was 34, they brought it down to 11, and then the discussion, the vote on Friday was going to be if they should make it 14. So it's just a difference between 11 and 14, and this huge discussion came of it. But basically, the reason that some people don't like it, and my understanding is a lot of the engineers don't like it because what they did with the transportation committee is they watered down the engineers by adding more people who are for the bike paths and things. They actually replaced a couple engineers also, I believe, with public works representatives.
One brief comment.
Yep.
Drip, drip, drip. If you want to know how 5 years ago they got to where we are, little moves, little maneuvers. They watered down a committee here, they lobbied there, it's a little bit at a time. What do? We're not in there. We're not in there maneuvering, we're not in there talking. Well, we are now, but we've not up until this point been in there pushing back and noticing it. It's very subtle little changes along the way that puts them in a position to have power. The head of the board gets to pick all the subcommittee members. Oh, who cares? Well, we ought to care, because he has a big influence in overall.
And about this TLCI program, you'll hear NOACA say all the time, well, you know, I know we don't have enough money for roads, and we're spending a lot of money on bikes, but we're doing that because the federal government says we have to. They mandate it that way. And I brought up the point at the January meeting, well, if you're going to be paying a lobbying group to lobby the legislators and you have a legislative agenda, why don't you put something in there saying, hey, why don't you give us more control over how we spend the money we get, and then that way we can maybe actually fund maintenance for our roads. Now, that being said, I pointed that out as they claim that they're mandated to do things and they have to do it this way. On Friday, they had a resolution where they approved to reprogram some TLCI money so that they can build a multimodal transportation facility. This is what Skip was talking about for the Republican convention. It's going to be in Cuyahoga County. I don't know, what is it, like a combined bus and train station or something? It's just it's just in Cuyahoga County. Well, then Cuyahoga County should be paying for it.
Right.
TLCI is funding a plan right now in Lake County. It's only in 5 cities and townships. It's Painesville Township, Painesville City, Fairport Harbor, Grand River, and Mentor. That's it. It's not even the entire county, but they're using NOACA dollars. So you guys, okay, your tax dollars are paying for this plan that's just, well, if these 5 cities and townships want to develop some bike paths, they should put it on the ballot and have their people pay for it through their taxes. And just so you know, this project is gonna cost $150,000, $120,000 from NOACA, $30,000 from City of Cleveland and RTA. So this is the plan I was talking about that's going on in Lake County. I'll just show you real quick. This is TLCI. They received a $75,000 TLCI grant from NOACA. The goal is to develop a master plan for those areas I told you about. The county's health district, Lake Tran, Planning Commission, and Metro Parks are also part of this. And part of their grant application said to help, they're doing this to help address chronic disease in our county. So they're doing this under the guise of health. Yeah, you know, because if there's all these bike paths, you're gonna go out in the winter and ride your bike, and you're gonna get all skinny, and you're gonna be healthy.
Okay?
Yeah.
If you build it, they will come, that's what they think. Or they'll make you come, you know, if you don't come, then they'll make you.
Do the snow and ice.
All right, so TLCI program is a competitive grant program that funds activities that specifically facilitate and promote sustainable development, multimodal transportation, complete and green streets. We didn't talk about that, but it's all part of the same mumbo jumbo.
Can you wrap this up?
Yep, we just have a couple slides left. Who said that? Who said that?
It's going on just a little, this direction.
I agree.
I mean, I can stop now. I don't have to finish.
Kind of a wrap up.
Nice job.
Very nice, but the timing.
So the fourth one down, the environmental justice, just wanted to point that out. Now this is what Mike was talking about, the Ohio Township Association Winter Conference. There's just a few slides from this I wanted to show you. Do you guys remember the Brundtland Commission? Remember we talked about that? Develop which meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. You guys recognize this?
We never got to this because I brought Stubborn Cup, who that Remsfield was. And everyone in the room stopped. The presentation never got off the ground.
Oh, really?
Because we talked for an hour and a half about what's going on in everybody's townships. And they see exactly what is happening in John.
Good.
They don't like it.
And here's some Ohio State Constitution stuff about property rights. And just so you know, our property rights are supposed to be inviolate, which means they are free or safe from injury or violation. They are not to be violated, kind of like our Second Amendment rights are not to be violated.
Is that like the bonus code?
And there you go, that's it, last slide. I'll have these up there if you guys want to flip through later.
All right, we have a few minutes for questions, but just a few minutes, so go ahead and we'll take questions. Go ahead, Elsie.
Well, so Mike was saying the septic system is one way they get you off of your property. what's another way that they get you out of, you know,
Land Conservancy.
Have you guys heard of
Wetland.
the Western Reserve Land Conservancy,
Yeah.
the conservation easements? So that's one thing that they do. They go to, right now they're going, I think they're specifically going to people who own large amounts of property. And they essentially say, hey, you can save a lot on your property taxes if you allow us to put this easement on your property. You know, nobody in the future will be able to develop it. It'll stay your beautiful farm or whatever. Well, the reason you save a lot on your property taxes is because by putting that easement on it, it decreases the value of your property because it's going to be harder to sell. Somebody who wants 100 acres isn't going to want some big easement telling them they can't even build a shed unless they get their permission. So it significantly decreases property values. You have trouble selling it, eventually need to dump it, and guess where it goes? To the land bank. So that's just one way.
There are other ways also, EPA, water, wetlands, EPA, they can grab it. The green thing with the birds, migration, you'll grab it.
They bring it in.
It goes on and on. The list is long.
Yeah, they have a lot of
Salamanders.
different.
Salamanders, that's what they are.
Salamanders.
No ducks in our area anyway.
Might be one.
Very few.
I'd like to see you tailor this and present it to the park board at some point in time, especially how it affects us involving the land conservancy and the park board, how they acquire land and the amount of land that's going into the parks.
Tom, there's a whole presentation on the Western Reserve Land Conservancy, the downside, and I've already asked John Oros if I could come in and give a talk on the Western
Fantastic.
Reserve Land
Good job.
Conservancy and the downside. And so he and I are talking about that.
Good.
Well, you know, the, Keith McClintock, who was second in command in our park district, is now with the Western Reserve Land
Vice
Conservancy.
President.
And he just applied to be interviewed for the job of executive director for the parks.
No, did he really?
Oh, yes.
Yes, he did.
Oh,
That'd be a
yes.
disaster.
Yeah, I agree.
We gotta go in there and make a big
And
statement.
let me tell you, you know, he and old Tom Curtin were Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
Yeah, we cannot allow that to happen.
Tom, I don't think any more conservation easements have been put on property at the park district anymore, has there? Since I've left.
No, but it would be a good educational
Okay.
program
That was
for
one of the things that I tried to stop.
attendees.
Yeah,
Because when the park buys up land, it takes dollars off the tax rolls.
Yeah.
And the citizens, I mean, that's why we're in the trouble we're in. There's over 10,000 acres in Jogga County owned by the park district. And all the townships that are building parks and putting conservation easements on them. And that, all those properties come off the tax rolls, and we, the people, get stuck. Same way with the roads, ODOT. I mean, we can't get money for ODOTs for our roads in Chester. I'm facing a $4 million shortfall for roads.
Well, and one thing that, and this is another thing that might excite you. In the NEOS recommendations, there's a concept called land value tax. And that's an additional tax over top of property tax. It's based on what's the perceived or calculated value of your land. People say, well, that'll never happen. There was just recently an article written by a guy by the name of Orolds or something, I forget, Ortiz or something like that. It was in the Plain Dealer. He just wrote an article on, and this is the way progressives do it. They introduce a concept, they build on the concept, NPR talks about it, the Plain Dealer talks about it, they start building ground support, next thing you know, you get a land value tax. That was one of the mechanisms that the Department of Transportation came in, and they talked in the fall, they gave a presentation, and we have a video of this, in which the guy said, in order to get people into these urban locational efficiency areas, we need to create incentives. And that incentive is more taxing. You create more taxes out of the rural areas. The property values, I mean, the land value tax is higher because you have 5-acre minimums and so forth. People say, I don't want to pay these taxes anymore. All of a sudden, they sell the property, they move to Cleveland, which is what they want you to do. That's part of the motivation. There's a whole system. There's a lot of stuff that are being put together right now, wired together, to force what they want to occur. And if we lay down and go to sleep, and we think it's a conspiracy theory, whatever the case is, it's going to happen.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks guys, I've had fun up here tonight.
Bobby, you have an announcement to make, so would you stand up there and shout it out?
Sure.
Oh, I don't know what's going on.
All right, we're gonna be doing the gun raffle $1 each or 6 for 5, I'll be in the back. And then we're also doing a 50-50 raffle, $1 each or 6 for 5.
What kind of gun?
That's a your choice.
A house.
From where? Where are we getting this stuff from?
From the agreement we have from when we did this